build a real estate business from the ground up, or any business for that matter, you definitely came to the right place. Today, I'm going to bring on a very special guest all the way from Western Canada. Mr. Cameron Manning is going to be joining us. He is a guy that got into a position where he was working around somebody that was doing the things he wanted to do. He implemented, he grew. Now he's a multifaceted entrepreneur. He owns investment properties. He's a real estate agent. He's an online personality. But the best thing about Cameron is he's always willing to learn. I see him in so many spaces that I spend time in, sharpening his sword, networking, collaborating, but more importantly, doing the things that people are teaching him. So Cameron and I go a ways back. We actually go back to the Keyspire Summit days. So through Scott McGilvery, the star of HGTV's Income Property, who has been on this podcast, and we were working summits on a 2-3 times a year basis. And I got to watch Cameron grow up over the years. Now, because everything's virtual, we see each other quite often on Clubhouse and on Zoom. But yeah, welcome, my guest, Mr. Cameron. How are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing excellent, Justin. Thanks for having me on the podcast, man.
I'm super pumped. Yeah, this has been a long time coming. I know you have your own podcast that you're launched, and you have some guests on, and you're growing and you're shifting and changing. But what I really want to do is just go back to the beginning. Let's talk about when you first got an interest in real estate, and what was that like for you? Because I think being on the inside now, we know the culture, we know the language. Let's start from the very, very beginning. Maybe give us your backstory.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's a bit of an interesting story, but growing up, I was in I would say an entrepreneurial family, but people are always trying different things, right? My mom was heavy into network marketing, and I actually started in network marketing when I was 16 years old, right? So doing the Amways and things like that, because, I grew up watching my parents do that. And over time, as I was growing up, I was turning 18, 19, I kind of realized, I'm like, hey, network marketing is not my thing, right? I've got all this crap in my garage, and I'm constantly trying to get my, 18-year-old friends to like join in and buy more crap as well. And to me, that wasn't my thing. So I was looking for a new opportunity, and full-time, my job was a lifeguard. And, I was patching some kid's toe who cut himself on a tile. And I hear this radio ad saying, hey, why don't you come out to this, seminar where we're going to teach you how to invest in real estate? And my parents had tried it. They owned a fourplex at one point in Edmonton, and it didn't go well, right? They did everything under the sun you could think wrong, between buying in the wrong location, not screening their tenants properly, to, just like not maintaining it. They ended up selling it. They weren't like, I'm not going to get back into real estate. But I saw that there was something there, even at a young age. I'm like, there's got to be something. We got to be doing this something different. I've got friends whose parents own real estate, and they're doing really, really well. So I said to my mom, I said, hey, let's go take a look at this seminar, and let's figure this out the right way. Right. So we did the seminar. She got almost more excited than I did. It was one of those scenarios where, you go, it's a 3-hour preview. Then they sell you up to the next package, which is like a weekend thing. It's like, we can't teach you all to invest in real estate in 2 hours. Come to our seminar. That's a weekend long. And then again, at the weekend long one, it's like $500 or whatever it was. Then they sell you into the bigger package. And, next thing you know, I'm trying to convince my parents to say, hey, I want to do this. I haven't picked what I'm going to do for college or university yet. Let's put that money into this. And I think I spent like $37,000. At the time, the going course was Rich Dad Education.
Sure.
And that's the one that I did. And yeah, that's what spurred on the interest in getting into real estate. My eyes were opened with those courses.
Let's pause on that. I think that's a great book. If you guys haven't read it, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Wealthy Barber. I mean, you start ingesting things like this. Andy T was on the podcast. He said The Wealthy Barber changed his life. Yeah. What were some of the principles that you learned from Rich Dad, Poor Dad that opened your mind?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, it's the book itself is not going to teach you to get rich. It's going to teach you the mindset behind getting rich. And I think that was the key thing. And learning what I learned from my mother specifically, who was the more entrepreneur, she was doing everything the wrong way and learning the right way. So one big one is that your home is not an asset, right? Your home is actually, you're paying for it every month. So why not take money and buy things that actually put your money to work to bring more money in, right? And I always like, it's Kevin O'Leary who always says, he looks at every dollar like it's a little soldier going into battle to capture more dollars and bring it home, right? I've always thought that was funny. I do have a little bit of a military background as well. So I always found that one, I related to that as well. So no, I mean, your home is not an asset. And then diving in deeper with his other books, the cash flow quadrant, learning where money comes from, how money flows through income to assets and liabilities. It's an eye-opening book. And if you haven't read it, then I would say that's probably the number one book most investors start with, you know?
That's awesome. Well, you got one of your mega fans, Matt Lamarsh, is saying, let's go, Cam. That's him on Facebook. Well, we're streaming on YouTube as well. Matt's got a great YouTube channel. He's doing some awesome podcasts. And then we have a whole bunch of other people actually in the comments. Mr. Cam, how are you, brother? So when it says Facebook user, so everybody watching, when you're streaming on multiple platforms, StreamYard actually has the ability to grant you Facebook access. So if you'd like to click the link that Eric's about to drop in the comments and show your faces, by all means. And if you want access to the StreamYard link, all you have to do is go into the practical and tactical group. Eric's going to drop that link in StreamYard. You can come stream bomb us, ask Cam a question live. I think that conversation around the mindset piece of real estate investing is super critical. And that shift, right, of saying, you know, this is how the world has taught us to live. But there's another world that, you know, ultra successful people are willing to reach back and bring you into. I think your mom was probably raised in a time where it was normal that you just paid off your house, you saved as much as possible because the interest rates were 16, 17%. We're in a very different world now too, where you're actually losing money because of inflation. But I guess you had an interest in real estate investing. You realized real estate was a vehicle. At what point in time did becoming a real estate agent enter your purview of, well, maybe I should get licensed as well as invest in real estate?
Yeah, it was several years later. I originally started, I lived in Edmonton at first, so I was born and raised there. I started my investing career. I actually opened up my own company focusing on rent to own. So I was 21 years old helping 40, 50, 60-year-olds get into their first home through a rent to own program. So that was really cool. Sure. I moved to Vancouver, and, you know, funny story, it's originally for a girl. Moved to Vancouver, followed my girlfriend out here, and got connected with one of my mentors now, Kelly Fry. And I made the decision. I was still working full time, and I had a portfolio of about 3 or 4 properties at that point. And I said, I'm going to be a full-time investor. And anyone who's ever said that realizes that living off of cash flow, especially when you're getting like $200 or $300 a month, you need a lot of properties to live off the cash flow. So, you know, I was talking to Kelly and saying, how can I do this full time? What do I need to do? How can I become a full-time investor? And she turned to me and says, well, you know, I'm getting really busy as a realtor and I could use help. And she at the time was coaching a lot of investors. She was actually a Rich Dad mentor at the time. And she said, why don't you come work for me? And I said, when do I start?
No job description, no pay.
No, I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea. And honestly, I didn't even know for the first 2 weeks that I was going to get paid for the job. And she's like, where's your invoice? I'm like, wait, this is a paid position? So it was working with her for about a year, and we were like taking courses on growing teams and expanding the business. When I realized, I'm like, there's an opportunity here for me to mix in what I know about investing now after having invested for probably about 4 years at this point, to now being able to, you know, coach people as a realtor and help them with their investments and obviously make a commission doing it.
Fascinating. I think that's super key. Matt Kelly, I'll pull that comment back up. Matt Kelly's a great dude. Really a practitioner, right? A guy that's similar to you, Cameron, of saying, hey, I just want to get around the right people. You didn't quantify it thinking, oh, well, like, what am I going to get paid? And just looking at it as a job, you looked at it as an opportunity. Yeah. We dropped the link for the StreamYard, and it turns out we did get stream bombed by the one and only Matt Lamarsh. What's up, dude?
What's happening, Matt?
What's going on, Cam? So first of all, awesome job. I always appreciate the value that you bring. This is actually a question you and I haven't talked about in Clubhouse. What would you tell an agent that's trying to go more into that investor niche? Like, what's the 1, 2, 3 pieces of advice that you're like, you got to start this in 2022 to have success in this year and years beyond?
So if I heard that right, it's how to get working with investors then, right? Yeah, I mean, I actually teach a course at my brokerage, this exact thing. The number one thing is to get educated on investing yourself. Right? So you can't run up to an investor and start talking, you know, investing terms if you don't understand the process yourself. It's so many times I have an agent who will come to me and tell me, man, this condo has a fantastic cap rate. And I say, well, did you know that cap rate is a fundamental term on commercial real estate, right? So, you know, it's one of those things. Make sure that if you're going to start working with investors, you go out and start working as an investor yourself, so you understand what they're looking for. So when you're talking to them, especially if you land that guy who's got 5 or 6 properties, you understand how to calculate cash flow, where the expenses are going, if they're looking to flip, how to properly evaluate a renovation that's going to add value, right? So you got to go out and do it yourself, and then you can really become an expert when it comes to working with investors.
Awesome, man. Love that advice.
Cheers.
See you, man.
Oh, I think we lost. Justin's muted there.
And apparently I don't know how to use my own StreamYard.
No, it's fine. My microphone was over on the other side of the building here. So yeah, we're good.
I like it. No, I was going to say, Matt, just to extrapolate on that a little bit, we're talking about building successful real estate careers, and you're talking about getting into a niche and working with those types of people. I think Cameron hit the nail on the head, is getting educated on the questions that they have. No different than building a YouTube channel or any business. It's what questions do those people have that you can answer, and what value prop are they looking to? I think you're definitely a guy that has a very insightful approach to real estate. And I think you've got that ability, but Cameron had an interesting point of looking at it through the lens of the end user, and then looking at the real estate industry and where agents can provide value. Now, question back to you, Matt, how do you think the role of an agent in a transaction is changing? Because things are changing so quickly with technology.
Well, Matt Leonetti just did a hilarious Instagram reel on this, by the way. So huge shout out to him. He said, you know what, I'm really scared about what the robots are going to do in real estate. And then he goes, and then I see the people at the self-checkout line not being able to figure out how to check themselves out. And I'm like, that's a good point. Like, there's a lot of people that, that want that hand holding. They want an investor-minded agent. And that's why I asked the question, right? Because ultimately, I love your answer, by the way, Cam, because to me, as an investor, you understand that mindset. It's a totally different thing when you're talking about a primary residence that you're going to live in, and you're going to be responsible for maintenance and everything else. When you think about it as an investor, more business minded, more numbers driven, it takes a little bit of that emotion out. So I'm not worried about it like Matt Leonetti's not worried about it. But I think from the investment side, they do want an expert, and they do want people that know what they're doing, that know what a good deal looks like, because an investor good deal is very, very different than a normal buyer, at least here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Well, I think even now, just being an advisor to investors, that buying a good deal doesn't even mean getting it underpriced anymore, right? Sure. It's making sure that in markets like we've all seen that, you're still going to probably have to bid, but where does that bid make sense now that it's still a good investment? Because we all know it's a low inventory market. So even flipping on the other side, because everyone thinks as an investor realtor, you're getting people things under market value. And that might not be the case, but you're helping them understand what the long-term potential is on properties as well.
Well, and don't you know that all those investors are like, I'm waiting for a better deal. Well, if you look at the 20 and 25 and 30% increases we've seen over the last year, a good deal was a year ago. Like, it's still relatively a good deal. So anyway, I love it. Well, thank you guys. I'll let you guys get back to it. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, appreciate you. Good seeing you. Yeah, I think Matt brings up a great point. There's another funny TikToker reel. Yesterday's price is not today's price. I think people these days, access to the deal flow is like the most critical part. I just talked to one of my agents about it earlier today. We have a whole bunch of exclusive listings right now, and we're connecting buyers with them that don't want to compete. Some families that don't want to go through the whole listing process, but still feel like we want to achieve top market prices. Well, there's buyers that will give you top market price to just do a deal where they don't feel like they're competing with 20 other people. I'm noticing a huge shift in that space.
100%. I mean, if they'll pay you $100,000 more knowing that they get it, versus having to go and fight 25 other people to get it, right? So,
and the stress that comes with that. But going back to that shift in terms of deal flow. So you do a lot of pre-construction investing. You guys get first access to a lot of projects.
Yep.
Walk me through your experience in that space. Because when you started working with Kelly, shout out to Kelly Fry. I love you. You're a wonderful human being. What did that experience look like to you? Best practices and things that you can give newer agents out there.
Totally. I mean, we kind of like fell into it, I guess is the right way to say. When we got connected with KeySpire, we realized that a lot of those investors, they liked that like projects, right? Coming in saying, hey, we have this project you can invest in. And at the time we were, I would say, crushing the resale game, right? We were finding great, single family homes that you could add suites to, cash flow. If we're investing closer to Vancouver, we were looking at resale condos. And we did some pre-sale, but we weren't pushing it hard. And when we realized what these investors were looking for, and we realized the opportunity we had with the resources, we just kind of paired them together. So it started off with we have someone at our brokerage who does project marketing. And when we were going to one of the summits, we literally just like begged, borrowed, and stole what we could from the project to bring it to the event. And the agent at the time told us, he's like, listen, I have agents all the time telling me that they can sell 5 units, no problem. I give them 5 units and they maybe sell 1 if they're lucky. He's like,
Sure.
So, give me a break. I'm not going to give you guys an entire project. So we said, just give us the 5 units then, right? And we sold them like that. Then we ended up beg, borrow, and stole for 2 more. That's all he would give us. So the next project, he opened it up, said, okay, I'll give you 10. And same thing, we sold them out. And so just kind of kept growing from there, the relationship. Then other developers started hearing about the sales that we were bringing in for this project marketing company to their developers. So they started reaching out to us saying, hey, I've got this new project. I hear you can bring 20 sales off the top. And the market is not like it was. We've had, 2016, 17, the market was going, but it wasn't as crazy as it is. 2018, it was hard to move pre-sales. Mm-hmm. People were nervous because our market had slowed down. Right. We had so much government intervention. It actually, the market was moving backwards in 18, 19. Yeah. So the pre-sale projects weren't selling like they used to. So we became a great commodity for the developers to say, hey, I don't even have to worry about the public. These guys are going to come in, they're going to wipe out 50% of the building, and I'll get my financing. And then I can start selling the rest out. Because that's the biggest concern for developers, is they have a timeline set for their building permit that they have to have the financing by, and the financing puts a time limit on for how many pre-sales they have to have sold and how many deposits in hand before they'll give the financing. So if they don't hit that target, then the whole thing collapses and they're back to square one. So we became the solution for a lot of those developers.
So putting yourself in the very beginning, how were you supporting Kelly, and what did you do to maybe earn her trust or learn in the trenches, right? Because you could just be punching a clock and doing clerical work, but I'm sure you were doing a little bit more than that.
Oh, totally. I mean, I think part of it was that she saw that I was an active investor as well. So I wasn't just somebody looking for the paycheck, right? I was still actively investing, adding to my own portfolio, which then helped her because she was my realtor while I was doing it.
For sure.
Right.
That's awesome.
And I was honestly, I was not just, the assistant in the office. Like I was literally doing everything. I'd pick up her kids from school. I taught one of them swimming lessons because again, I had that lifeguarding background.
Yeah.
Right? She's like, oh man, Johnny keeps failing swimming this level. And I'm like, well, I used to teach that. So why don't I take him for like a swim day and I'll help him get past. Right. So I just kept doing everything I could and I'd follow her wherever she was going. Right. So listing appointments, working with investors, everything, just trying to learn. Yeah. And from there, when I made the decision to get my license and join her on the sales side of it, she kind of put it back on me. She's like, well, what structure should we do for the team? Right. Mm-hmm. Between commission splits, everything. So I was kind of at the very beginning stage of creating that team structure. And from there, we've had our ups, we've had our downs, but I dug in, worked, and I've showed, I guess, loyalty to her and the team. That's where now we've built it more of a partnership in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. I do have a lot of say on the team, which is awesome. And I'm looking to the long term. I'm not looking at it like some agents do. I want to join a team, learn from them, take what they learn, and go and do their own thing.
Sure.
I'm looking at that this is going to be a huge business. It's not just being realtors; it's a business, and that we're going to grow together doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's super critical. I see a lot of people in the industry do a lot of coaching from a national level with a lot of different people. And it's the same conversations over and over. You'll find agents that are unhappy at specific brokerages, or they get into the market now because they think it's amazing. And it's probably harder to be an agent today than it was 5 years ago. Limited inventory, very, very difficult marketplace.
Very competitive.
And you'll see people being like, oh, okay, I'm going to make a brokerage switch. That's going to solve it because once I get there, I'm going to be in the ecosystem and everything else. But what happens is they shift and then they just don't show up and do the consistent things that they need to do to gain the skill set. They're not willing to lower themselves to a place where they're doing open houses or showings. And again, Andy T says, like, if you want to grow a real estate business, host open houses, you should be working all weekend at open houses.
100%.
Something that agents think they're too good for. Now, I'm going to throw it back on you. What do you think the core skill sets that agents should be working on today are the ones that you would focus on if you were starting from scratch again?
I mean, one thing I would say is ego. I think a lot of people, like you said, they get in thinking it's a great business. They're bringing their skills and same thing. I'm too good for open houses. I'm too good to go door knock. No, you're not. You're brand new. Put the ego aside and literally just do exactly what all the agents who've come before you have said and do it at a high level. right? So like you said, do open houses all weekend. There's no reason you shouldn't be doing 4 open houses if you're brand new.
Sure.
So 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, every weekend. And you be strategic, right? Pick 2 properties that are similar of style. So that way, when someone comes in over here, you can say, well, great, I'm going to host this one open, and you get a double chance at converting that client, right? So put in the work, remove the ego from it. You're licensed, yes, but you need to prove yourself in the market first, right? And just work on your work ethic. I mean, if you're new and you don't have other responsibilities like kids or whatever, I see a lot of young guys who want to cap it out at 5 o'clock. I'm like, like, you're 20 years old. This business doesn't end at 5 o'clock even for me. So you should be working till 10:30 at night, on whether at night you're working on your social media or you're working on your systems, right? During the day, you're doing whatever lead gen activity that you've decided is your go-to, right? And you should be doing that from 7 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night while you're young,
Absolutely key. What's up, Amanda Dahl? She said hello
Amanda.
as well. She's here. Shout out to Wally as well. Wally Bressler. Wally's going to be on the podcast as well. He kills it in phone sales. Appreciate you for being here, Wally. He's a great member of the practical and tactical community. I was going to say, oh, yeah, Kim is a beast in new construction. I feel like that's Kyle Henry. Kyle, I've told you 100 times to click the StreamYard grant Facebook access link so we can see your face. But Kyle, let us know if that was you. I'm going back to Skillsets. So you pointed out such a couple cool things that I really want to highlight. Just show up. Don't be afraid to work hard. I mean, it's a job, right? So you got to show up to your job if you're going to work. A lot of people like sitting back on real estate because they think, the business is going to come to me. Never, ever has that ever happened. I still feel like it's day one, to be quite frank with you. For me, I feel like I'm just getting started. Yeah, it was Kyle, and Olivier is here as well. Apparently, 2 of our favorite people don't know how to click a link. So we love you guys. I'll send it to you after the podcast. Wally's got a question, actually. How are rising interest rates in Canada affecting new construction? You want to answer that, Mr. Cam?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we're going to start seeing that more and more. I think at the end of the day, it's still a situation where we have low inventory, right? Entire projects are selling out in literally a day. And I'm talking like a tower will sell out in a day. We had one in Surrey, 360 something units, and wiped out in the first weekend, right? So I think we have such a low inventory market that even with a slight raise in interest rates, people are still going to want to get in. Plus, they're not having to close on those properties for 2 to 4 years. So the conversation I'm having with all those investors, I'm like, these interest rates you're getting right now are not going to be what you get when this project closed anyways. But we got to look at the long term again. What's the growth potential in the market that we've seen? It's never guaranteed. None of us have that crystal ball that says, yes, you will get 20% appreciation per year. We happen to have gotten it more or plus last year. But your goal is to always be to close on that property, right? I think most investors get into pre-construction with the thought process that they're just going to flip it and make $100,000. So I always say, no, your first thing is to go in and be prepared to close. You're going to hold this as a rental. If the market makes sense in 2 to 5 years, depending on the project, then we'll flip it. We'll cash out, take that money, roll it into another project. But if you plan for the worst case scenario, you have multiple exit strategies, you're always going to do well on a pre-construction. You just have to make sure you're not banking on one strategy.
Thank you for saying that. I think, again, to the Twitter trolls and all the TikTok trolls out there that think we're just trying to do sales and we're greasy salesmen. Yes, I'm wearing a tie. Yes, he's wearing a nice sport coat, but we're human beings at the end of the day. And you just touched on something in pre-construction investing I don't think a lot of agents do. And a lot of agents I see out there selling, oh, look at the market. It's amazing. It's going to go up and up and up. I'm like, no, if you're buying pre-con, buy it to hold it. If you happen to benefit from an appreciating market, great, but you're planting a seed. You're buying an asset that's, call it, worth $650,000 today. You're putting 20% down. The tenant's going to pay off the rest of the asset. Literally, it's like going to the bank and saying, I'm buying a $100 bill for $20. I'll come back in 15 years. You're going to give me $100, right? You're just doing that at scale. And then there's the other ways to win in real estate. So I love that you have that approach and ethics towards that.
And I think the big thing too is that when we think that multiple exit strategy, it's not just rentals. We have so many people, including like they're going to buy a pre-sale, get the 2 years of growth, and then do an Airbnb to maximize their cash flow, right? Or, furnish rentals or whatever the case might be. So there's so many things that you can think about in advance and have plan A, B, C, D, again, that multiple exit strategy. And to me, if you're going to buy into a pre-construction, 2 years of growth is great, especially in markets like this, but 7 years of growth is even better. So think about the time it takes to build and then do a 5-year hold strategy.
Yeah, I talked to an investor this morning, owns 17 plus properties. We've sold properties for him before. I was appraising his house. And he was talking about the Grand Bend market. And he's like, he sold a bunch of stuff there. He's like, I should have kept it all. Bought a flip for 180. We sold it at 290 after he did the flip. So he made really good money on it. That same place today is worth around $850,000. And I'm talking like 3 or 4 years. We actually had somebody that asked, can you give us an idea of the percentage gain from people that bought in 2018, 19, 20? So maybe you want to do a year-on-year average or total gain.
Yeah, I mean, 2018, 19, we had a slight decrease, about 5%, and then 19 to 20 was about 10%. So, I mean, when you look at that, I would say it was a net 5% growth.
Sure.
Then from 2020 to 2022, it's been an average of 15 to 20% gains per year since then, right? So, again, the markets do shift. I always look at it this way. You know, Vancouver, I've kind of studied, you know, long-term, and I would say in a 5-year hold, you're going to go through probably 2 up markets and 1 down. Right. The down markets last anywhere from 12 to 18 months typically, because a lot of it's due to either a global economic thing, like let's look at, 08, 09, right? Or it could be a localized thing like 18, 19 was just tons of government changes where buyers just took a step back, right? Mm-hmm. And then sellers panicked because they saw the buyers stepping back and they flooded the market with
inventory.
Right? So, you know, when you look at that, if you hold for 5 years and you have 1 year where it goes up 10%, I'm not going to use big numbers, but 10% is fairly reasonable in our market. 10% up, then it drops 5%, then it goes up another 10% in 5 years. Well, now you're up 15%, right, in a 5-year period. So I think that's very reasonable. And again, our market has defied that logic time and time again over the last 10 years. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you got to play the long game in real estate. If you are navigating those waters, definitely appreciate those insights. Going back to building a real estate business. So you've gotten into the business, you understand kind of the habits that are required to make sure that you're growing and you're getting better. Obviously, you want to learn the market. You said you studied Vancouver, super key points. So many people do not know the market. They're literally just plugging clients into MLS. You are going to be a dinosaur in 5 years. I promise you, if that's your strategy. But let's talk lead conversion. So newer agents, experienced agents, you know, Facebook leads, online leads. Our boy Kyle Henry's here. Kyle can convert online leads like nobody's business. But then you get tons of agents that say they're trash and they don't work. What is your opinion of lead conversion and what process do you think adds value to the clients?
I think at the end of the day, you need to come from value always. Come from contribution, because if you come from the me mentality, like, hey, you need to work with me and I'm going to find you a home because you're looking for that commission, they're going to see right through that and they're not going to convert, right? So you need to come from that value. So for me, as an example, my lead source was networking at real estate investor events. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you're probably familiar with the Real Estate Investment Network, RAIN. Yeah. We had several others. I would go to 3 to 4 of these meetings per month with the goal of just trying to add value to these investors. And then they turned around and said, hey, you're the kind of want as an investment realtor. And again, that's my lead source. If you're at an open house, engage with the people and get curious about them, right? Ask questions to them. And I can't remember who said it, but the saying is like, he who asks the questions wins, right? So you're asking questions, show that you're interested in someone at an open house, and then provide value. When they say that, hey, they're looking for a place close to a school, great. Well, I know these 3 properties that are actually would be perfect for you within walking distance to whatever school they're looking for, right? And that again goes to knowing your market. So if you want to convert, come from contribution, come from value, and get to know why, get to know their reason why, and solve that problem as to why they can't find it.
I think, man, knowing your market is like step one. Again, going back to the core of it, because if you get a lead that calls you and is interested in a specific property, you're probably like me, you just can't stop. You can't help yourself from telling them about other things that are happening. Oh, did you know that this development's popping up and this is happening and this is happening? I think there's so many little insights that you can provide that might get their attention. We also have Success Fab Motivation. Hey, Tosh, nice to see you. Appreciate you being here for the show as well, too. So relationship building. You have clients, you have people, you have the Kellys of the world, you have all the people that you're meeting on Clubhouse. How important is relationship building in growing your business, and what methods do you use to really anchor and find the right relationships?
Great question. I think at the end of the day, if you want to be successful in this business going forward, the key word is going to be collaboration, right? We are becoming a global business. You know, back in the day when you were the like localized, I was for case in point, the Maple Ridge expert. All I do is Maple Ridge sales. I don't go across the bridges. That's all I know. And MLS was a book and everything like that. Press hard for the 3 copies of the contract. You could do that. You could be the local guy. However, now with people moving all different directions, going everywhere, and with the connections we have just with like a live stream,
Sure.
having that collaboration with other people across the world is going to be what's going to take your business to the next level. I don't consider myself just a Vancouver realtor. Just this morning, I had a client asking me how I can help them in Saskatoon. How I can help them is by connecting them with my network of people that I've established, that I know, like, and trust, that will take care of my clients. And that's how I'm going to grow my business as well, right? Someone wants to go to London. Yeah, I know the right guys, right? Prime Brokerage, I will definitely connect you guys with them. As growing my business, because, you know, people might refer, give referrals, whatever the case might be. So I'm growing my business. At the same time, I'm still servicing those clients. So I would say you need to start opening your mind to the collaboration aspect and building yourself a global network of people that you can like connect with, right? And I think that's where, even just looking at, you know, my podcast growth, you know, going on Clubhouse and connecting with all the amazing people that I've met through that is the whole reason why I relaunched my podcast. Because I'm like, man, there's so much value here. I want to share it with my group. And I can do that through, you know, Matt Lamarsh came up. I saw Amanda Dahl. We interviewed her. So connecting with people like that has then allowed me to be able to add more value to the people who I service.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron, right? So does the countenance of one man sharpen the other. I think the Clubhouse app's been very interesting because same thing with me. This channel for a long time, and when I say channel, I'm talking about the Justin Konikow YouTube channel. We're on like 3 different platforms now, but I do have a focus of who does it speak to. Prime Brokerage, is YouTube channel, is people looking to relocate to Southwestern Ontario. All the content speaks to them. My channel is more geared towards people like you and other people that are maybe in the industry, or clients that are like, you know what, Justin, I'm not looking to be in Southwestern Ontario. I'm moving to Florida. I sent a whole pile of referrals out to Florida over the last couple of weeks because of our lockdowns in Ontario. People this morning, again, another client was like, hey, I want to buy a spot in Florida. I definitely want to go down there. I'm like, well, we're an international brokerage. And I thought it was so interesting. And this is a big shift I want to talk about. Back in the day, you joined a big brand brokerage because that brokerage had the network. You were tapping into a network of thousands of agents across the country, and you kind of had to be with the brand. Yeah. I would argue that I actually have a larger, more international, real network of people that I know personally and could reach out to than some of the biggest brands in North America. And I'm able to do that in a digital world because I can do this where the brand can't, because it's maybe just somebody that's sitting in an office that doesn't have the resources or the ability to connect with a Cameron Manning. So how are you changing the game in terms of developing a strong network yourself versus what it's always been in this industry?
Well, you know, it's funny because I am with a large name brand, and I don't see that has necessarily helped in terms of that growth. You know what I mean? We do have the opportunity to like punch in something looking for referrals.
Sure.
But I find that, you know, if you're just throwing referrals to the wind, you don't know who you're getting.
Amen.
So at that point, you know, for me, I said, let's take this smaller approach, right? Let's build it organically. And you'll hear this from different brokerages. Keep the referrals within the brokerage, right? You know, within that atmosphere. For me, I don't care who it is, right? As long as they're servicing the client, that to me is more important. So going out and networking, whether it's, you know, through Clubhouse, whether you're watching the stream and you text and we connect and we chat, or I've got a lot of people through the Sirhan group that I've been chatting with, you know, just connecting yourself with these places where agents come together to network and collaborate, right? And if you're not looking for those opportunities, then you will be an isolated individual in your little town and you might not get that global reach. Fine if that's what you want. But if your goal is to then build that global, right? And like I said, I honestly think that some of my best realtor friends have come from smaller boutique brokerages, right? So the brand of the brokerage, it doesn't matter who it is. Look at how they service their clients and who they are as a person.
It is people over profits, right? Like I sent a lead out to Brad McCallum out in Calgary. Great guy. I met Brad actually on the podcast. Really cool creator. I got to know him through his social content. Sent one of my AAA clients to go see him. They did a deal. And the best part about it was I got a call from my client And my client was like, man, thank you so much for that intro. I would have never found him on my own. Didn't even care about the referral that came from it from a monetary perspective. It was like my people got taken care of. And I'm glad we're talking about this because I don't think a lot of the public knows that when you're saying, hey, do you know somebody here? A lot of real estate agents just go to their database, type in their name, send them to a random person for a paycheck, and referrals pay, right? So they'll get 25% typically of that transaction, whatever percentage they agree upon, yet the consumer doesn't know. And I think the consumer is understanding a lot more. Networks are important. And I will never send somebody to somebody that I haven't vetted. Dan Parker's on the stream. I sent him a guy in San Diego. That's right. Amazing how that works, right, Dan? Dan's got an amazing YouTube channel. Go check it out. And I was on Dan's podcast. I saw that he was a real one, practitioner, ethical, like you, Cameron, like I. And I said to Amanda the other day, I kind of call us Ronins, right? So a Ronin is a samurai with no master. We're kind of just floating around the world and we're willing to work for the best of the community versus for a boss. And I think that's really changed in our industry. Let's touch on that though. Brokerage selection. So agents that get into the industry, I can't talk about it because I don't really recruit, but brokerage selection tactics. How would you go about finding a brokerage if you were newly licensed?
You know, it's funny because obviously the brokerage I'm with is because Kelly was with them. Sure. It's still the first brokerage that she ever joined, so we haven't moved. But I hear this all the time, and I know people who've jumped between different brokerages. So first and foremost, I would say you got to look for who the people are running the brokerage, right?
Leadership.
The leadership, absolutely. If you don't find that they are a leader that you can follow and you're inspired by, then the likelihood is you're gonna burn out with them, and you're gonna be like, man, I don't want to grow their business, as I hear a lot of realtors say, you know what I mean? And they're going to start jumping to other brokerages. The next thing is the training and education, right? I think that's key, that if you want to be successful in this business, you need to get educated, whether it's learning how to, do lead generation, to running comparables for properties, to how to write a contract. If they don't have a good education system to make sure that you are, one, staying out of real estate jail, and two, being able to grow your business, then you might be struggling for a while, right? And I think the biggest misconception people pick is they pick the brokerages based on the fees, right? They try to find, in a lot of cases, the cheapest fees possible, and with that comes probably a lack of leadership and a lack of training, support, and systems, right? So now you're just, I see it all the time, and I don't want to pick on some of these brokerages, but I'll have one of those agents and I'll be correcting their contracts because they're new and they haven't been trained. Right. So make sure you guys are looking for the leadership first, what systems they have for you, and of course, what training they have for you. And I think that's more important than any financial aspect.
I agree. I think the industry has a lack of quantifiable apprenticeship, put it that way, right? So if you become a lawyer, you typically have to apprentice. If you become a doctor, you typically have to do time in a hospital, and you literally have to learn to do the job before you can do the job. Real estate's the only industry where you get licensed and it's like, here's a cell phone and a chair. And it's always funny to me. Yeah. It's always funny to me though, when agents come and sit down and the first question out of their mouth is, what are your commission splits? I usually end the interview pretty quickly after that, because it's no different than sitting down with the seller. And the only question they ask you is, what's your commission? What do you charge? And I'll usually reply with the same answer of, well, do you care more about what we charge, or do you care about how much you're going to make? Because those are two completely different questions, right?
Well, when we think about it, and I think it might have been you who said it once, but I've heard it and I've been using it a lot when I'm coaching people now. The conversation of price is only a conversation in the absence of value, right? And same thing. So I just went to a listing appointment. I brought someone new with me, and the first thing out of their mouth was, you didn't even talk about commission. I'm like,
no,
I didn't. And they're like, and they didn't question it when they saw it written in on the contract. I'm like, no, because you create value, right? And the first thing that they always run into, she said, is like, I always get asked first thing, how much do you charge? And I got to justify it. And then they ask for a discount. And I'm like, well, that just proves we need to change how you talk to the people, right? So
everything's changing. Matt Lamarsh piped in. He said personal brand is the game for agents. It is, Matt. And I think goes to our conversation. I think we can change the industry. I think the public tends to think that agents are thirsty and they'll say whatever just to get a sign on a lawn or work with a buyer. And that it has been the case forever. And my advice to a lot of new agents is, well, change your value proposition, right? Because the tech companies are coming. They're coming for the MLS and the sold data. So if your value prop to a client is, well, I can get you exclusive deals, I can get you expert analysis, I can be a consultant, I can give you more value than I'm taking. You don't need every client. because you can say no to clients and they don't need every agent. And the best relationships are where I don't need you, you don't need me, but we're better together than we are apart. And then that's where the price is not a discussion, because I'm going to make you more money than you're going to pay me. And then in the long run, our relationship is going to grow, right?
100%. Yeah.
So I'm going to get through a rapid fire round of questions for you, and I'm going to get you out of here so you can get back to work. I see the sign behind you that money never sleeps and your phone's popping off. So I got to get you back to those calls, I'm sure. So what's the greatest lesson you've learned up to this point?
Greatest lesson I've learned is that nobody's ever married to their realtor. So you need to continue to provide value because they will go elsewhere. So that's one thing I've learned. And I would say that if you learn that, you can then create raving fans.
100%. You're always selling yourself to your clients, and you should be communicating what you're doing to get better at your job, what you're doing to market their property, skill set, and everything else. I always like asking this question. It's more probably from a selfish place, but I always say people are learning 20% of something that maybe makes no sense to the world right now. Right. So 80% of what you're learning and doing is the practical and tactical stuff. But what's 20%? Is it crypto? Is it NFTs? Like, what's that 20% of energy deployment right now?
Yeah, you know what? I would say it's into the crypto market right now, because obviously I want to stay forefront to what's changing, and it's going to have an impact into what's going on in the future world. When you ask me about crypto, I will be the first person to say I still have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm dabbling, right? So I am putting some time and effort into learning that. NFTs are still over my head, but that's kind of the next thing to start tackling after that. When you hear someone say they bought a 2.4 million digital house, I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out.
It's bananas. I was playing in the sandbox the other day trying to set up the Prime verse, but I'm getting old and gray, so I got to figure it out quick before I fall off the ladder there. So how has failure shaped your life?
That's a whole long conversation that we can talk. I've experienced a lot of failure. And one thing I've realized, and it might sound cliche, but there's never failure if you learn. And I have learned a lot over the last, 12 years in this business, whether it's with a bad real estate deal or bad money habits that I had to change, or whatever the case might be. I would say that if you don't learn from your failure, then you don't grow.
Yeah, there's no such thing as failure in my mind. Will Smith said that. He said that, failure is an absolute requirement of success.
100%.
Here's a random question, since we know so many of the same people. Who do you know that you think I should know, or maybe a podcast or somebody that I should check out? You know me pretty well, so I'm curious to hear your answer.
Interesting. Yeah. Who do I know for a podcast? I just recently have started listening to Danielle Vanas. I don't know if you have met her through Clubhouse.
No.
In Toronto. She just launched her new podcast, Told As Is. And honestly, I've listened to the first 2 episodes now, and I think she's onto something with that one. It's pretty fun.
Cool. I'm going to check her out, and I'll tell her that you sent me, just so she gets that connection as well. And what have you read that I should read?
What have I read? I mean, one of my most recent books was Profit First. So great book, learning how to change your mindset when it comes to money and start actually changing how you track everything, where you should be taking your profit first and then everything else gets paid after that. If you start focusing on that, you'll see the profits start to grow.
Absolutely phenomenal. Now, the very last, the most important question, if you've ever watched an episode of Prime People, you know what's coming. How can I add value to you? If people want to connect with you, a project you're working on, my platform's yours, brother.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Best way is through social media. You guys can find me at Cam E. Manning on most platforms, Instagram, TikTok, or you can check me out. You can easily contact me, Cameron E. Manning at gmail.com. We have projects coming up probably 4 times a year, give or take. So if you do want to get in on something, let me know. We do have the first access.
Oh, we appreciate you so much, Cameron. His TikToks are absolute fire. You can find this guy in real life. If you go on Clubhouse or IG, he responds. And I'm sure we're going to do more episodes in the future, Cam. I appreciate your time as always.
Appreciate the opportunity, man. Great connecting.
Awesome. See you, brother.
Cheers.